What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Couch Coach Podcast. Super excited for this episode today. I think that this is going to be a super fun one. Today is going to be part one, and there will be a second part to this coming out. Today is Monday, which will be part one, and Thursday will be part two. Is the hope as of right now. But as you can see on the screen right here, this is going to be, I guess you could call it, my favorite matchup for each week going into the season. I tried to pick matchups that had the most implications as far as the season goes, playoff implications, conference championship implications, things like that. After I finish up part one and two of this, I'm going to be doing my playoff predictions, who I think will be the top 12, how I think that will all shake out. But yeah, super excited to get into it. If you're on Spotify, follow the podcast. If you're on YouTube, like and subscribe, leave a comment down below. Um, Super excited. We're gonna go ahead and jump right into it. So this is before anybody goes crazy. North Carolina and TCU, not a big game at all. I understand. This is week zero, so there's only like 7 or 8 games total in week zero. None of them are any good. Like they're all pretty bad. Not a ton going on in for either of these two teams. Um, as you can see, kind of the layup I have here. Obviously, we can see the team, we can see a quarterback, and then you'll see these arrows in the middle. That is kind of like who I think. Obviously, at the top has the better quarterback. Who do I think has the better offense, defense, and my key to success for each of those teams. Um, we'll start with North Carolina. This was a team last year that had like obviously these high hopes. You bring in Bill Belichick, and then it just doesn't work out. Bill Belichick did not have the season that he was hoping for. North Carolina goes on to win, I believe, just 4 games, two of them being like Charlotte and another Division two school. So nothing too crazy for North Carolina. But I do believe that they are a better team than TCU. I believe they have better assets. Um, as far as player acquisition goes, they have a better scouting staff, and I think that Bill Belichick will be able to put together a better team this upcoming year. Now, TCU blew out North Carolina last year, um, so that is something to remember. I think that coming into this game, Belichick knows that. I think this is a huge benchmark for Bill Belichick and that staff to kind of look at what they've built this last offseason and see if they've improved at all. And if it hasn't improved, I think we will probably be seeing the last of Bill Belichick. As far as who I think will win this game, I do think that North Carolina has the edge here. I think that with a team, obviously this is week zero, so you haven't seen any film on this team. Obviously, you have whatever you got from last year. Um, they could have, obviously they're going to have different personnel, and that'll change the way you approach things. Um, I do think that Bill Belichick will get his feet up under him, and I do think that it'll be possible for them to win this game. Establishing the ground game, I think in week zero for North Carolina, having something reliable to kind of fall back on in the run game, I think will be key for them to win this game. And for TCU, I think if you just come in and you force turnovers, Bill Belichick was going to get frustrated, and that's going to leak into that whole team. I think if you jump on them early, then North Carolina's and that whole coaching staff on the sideline is just thinking like, man, we're the same team that we were last year, and that is the key for TCU. Just get on them quick, force some turnovers, and this I feel like this team will be very easy to deflate. TCU obviously loses Josh Hoover, big hit to that program. They bring in Jaden Craig, who's a transfer from Harvard, and I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. Obviously, Billy Edwards Jr., quarterback of North Carolina, is also a transfer, but coming from Wisconsin, so a little bit of a better football program as things go. But I think that this game will be very interesting to say the least. Obviously, there's not going to be a lot of football this week. Most of the matchups are pretty bad teams. FSU does play this week, and I really thought about putting them because I think as far as just like brand goes and like eyes, people would way rather watch FSU, but they're playing um, New Mexico State. So didn't feel like that game was going to be as entertaining as two actual football teams going at it. Not that Florida State is very good right now, but these two teams I think would be more entertaining than a Division One school playing against um, New Mexico State. So we'll go ahead and jump into week two, or technically week one, because the first week of the season is week zero. This is going to be a very exciting game, and there's a lot of implications here. Um, LSU, obviously, absolute overhaul for the whole team, the whole staff. You bring in Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin brings a quarterback out of the portal with him in Sam Levitt. You bring in one of the best recruits in the nation last year in Lamar Brown at defensive tackle. Lane also brought with him from Ole Miss a five-star edge rusher. His first name is Prince Will. I cannot pronounce his last name. Oman Maline. I think that's how you pronounce it. Um, the problem for LSU is, and I think that the only way that something could go wrong for this team, obviously we know everyone's heard the price tag on this team, 40 million plus range for this entire roster. The talent's there, but can Lane Kiffin can he make it all work? Like you can see, I wrote down the key to success for LSU. This will be their first game of the season. Can they make it work? Can they make this all mesh together? With the amount of transfers you bring in, sometimes you can just watch these teams and it can be a little difficult for it all to work out um, right off the bat. Outside of, obviously, we talked about Sam Levitt, Lamar Brown, um, the edge rusher. They didn't have like a big bad wide receiver really coming into this year. Like they brought in 9 wide receivers from the transfer portal, which is just insane. Um, as far as production goes, none of them really produced anything at their last schools. They did bring in Trey Brown and Jace Brown, both of those guys coming from smaller schools, but those guys are going to bring the most production for you as far as like already proven production, but not from a premier school. You bring Winston Watkins from Ole Miss, Lane's guy. Maybe Lane features him in the offense. And I do have some questions about this running back room for LSU. It doesn't seem like they really have a guy there either. Um, so this could be one of those things where like they have the star power, like they have the quarterback, they have the edge rusher, they have the defensive tackle, but they might be lacking a little bit in weapons. So they also bring in Jordan Seaton from the portal, so you'll have good protection there on the front. I think the offensive line is extremely talented in Louisiana. Can Lane make it mesh? And can they get enough production out of this offense? Obviously, outside of Sam Levitt, you're probably going to see a lot of scrambling from Sam Levitt this year. Is my prediction. Um, I do personally believe that Lane's going to get it to work. Watching what he done at LSU, I mean, he really did turn that program into like a noteworthy program these last couple of years, making it into the playoffs. Obviously, left them before the playoffs this year. Little salty about that, I'm sure, down in Ole Miss, but um, they'll get there. I'm assuming they'll get back this season. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Um, but Clemson, this is very interesting. Clemson, terrible record last year, finished the season 7-6. Not what everyone thought it was going to be. This was a team that was projected to be one of the best teams in the country. They ended up being one of the, as far as Power Four goes, worst teams in the country. I don't think that they have a talent advantage over any part of this LSU team. Definitely not at quarterback. Um, you've got a true freshman in Tate Reynolds in a quarterback battle with Christopher Vecina right now. It does seem like Christopher has the edge so far from what I've read out of like Clemson beat writers and stuff like that. Um, but I don't think that this offense is better than LSU's. We know that they lost so many pieces of their offense and defense to the NFL last year despite being such a bad team. This is going to be a really interesting game. Dabo, it kind of feels like for the first time in a long time, is on a hot seat. Like his job might be on the line here if he can't produce in this game and he can't make a good season with this team. Unfortunately, like it feels like he is finally buying into like the transfer portal stuff. Obviously, he for the first time ever really like dipped into the transfer portal and pulled a decent class out of the portal. But the question is like, is it too late? Like, did he just wait so long that his talent, like the talent that he had recruited, is now gone, and he didn't recruit out of the portal, and so like the team's just kind of in this weird limbo spot where the recruited talent has moved on to the NFL, and now that gap of not taking people out of the portal is catching up. Um, so yeah, I don't think that Clemson has the talent to beat this LSU team. If LSU makes it work, Clemson truthfully stands no chance. Um, my key for Clemson, you got to win the turnover battle. You have to force interceptions, force some fumbles. With it being week one, maybe this offense um, has a couple of hiccups in the first half or for the whole game, and you get a couple interceptions, um, and that can kind of swing the game for you. But I think without that, Clemson probably is going to be looking at a loss to start their season and probably really just a grim outlook on this season. I do have them in one other matchup, and you'll see why. But I'm not projecting Clemson to have the best season this upcoming year. Man, Ohio State and Texas, we get a rematch. This one was super hard. Um, just two insanely talented teams. Between Julian Sand and Arch Manning, I didn't know where I wanted to put the advantage on the quarterback here between these two guys. Arch, I think, offers you more on the ground. Obviously, Julian Sam, we know, is one of the most accurate quarterbacks. It's it was very hard for me to pick in the quarterback battle, so I called it a wash basically. I don't think that either one of these guys, obviously they have different skill sets, but I do think that they provide about the same amount to their team. Um, yeah, it was just super hard to pick between these two guys. Moving down, offense and defense. I don't think that you can give. I know that Texas brought in Cam Coleman. I know that, they have this insane transfer portal class that they're bringing in. They have some really good talent coming in. But you just, like, Jeremiah Smith, Bo Jackson, Chris Henry Jr., I just, there's not a room of weapons in the country better than those guys. You bring in, like, the top wide receiver out of high school in Chris Henry Jr., you have one of the greatest wide receiver prospects of all time in Jeremiah Smith, an elite running back in Bo Jackson. I mean, I just I couldn't think of a way to give Texas the edge over Ohio State on offense. But as far as defense goes, I do think that Texas can find the edge here, and I think that that's why this game will be so fun to watch. It's just going to be like two elite units going at each other, this offense and this defense, between the Ohio State offense and the Texas defense. Obviously, you have edge rusher Colin Simmons, Anthony Hill Jr. at linebacker, some very well known prospects that the NFL have their eyes on, and I'm sure foaming at the mouth to get into the league. Um, it's going to be very difficult for this Ohio State team to move the ball, and I think the only reason why they even stand a chance at moving the ball is because of those weapons previously talked about that Ohio State has. The key for these games, Julian playing Julian Sand has to outplay Arch. I mean, he just has to have an insane game. We saw it last year. Julian Sand outplayed Arch. Arch threw a couple of throws at the end of the game that cost him, and Julian Sand didn't have any mistakes that were detrimental to his team. That ended up being the difference in that Ohio State Texas game last year to open the season. Um, the key for Texas, can they flip the script on Ohio State, make it the opposite of what it was last year? Can they force Julian Sand to make a mistake? I think that'll be super difficult for them. Julian Sand has another year under his belt, and he's seen a lot of very elite defenses, specifically Miami and Indiana last year. Obviously, he's seen pressure and he's seen what these tough defenses look like. and I feel like he's going to be prepared for this Texas defense, especially, he's got film on this defense from when they played him last year with a lot of the same players. Um, I think this will be a great game, but I do think that Ohio State's offense is just too talented to not win this game again. I think it'll be like last year. I think it'll be a close game, somewhere in the 17-14, 21-17 area. But I think Ohio State takes it. And I think it's going to be off the back of Julian saying and just being able to establish that run game, pounding it, and then whenever Texas, starts to stack the box, drop it over the top with Jeremiah Smith or Chris Henry Jr. And I think Ohio State will take this game. LSU again. I did just mention this earlier. LSU going back to Ole Miss, or Lane Kiffin going back to Ole Miss, back to the team that he left. This and I'm one. This is something that you'll probably pick up if you continue to listen or to watch these videos. I'm big into sports psychology. I love the psychology of sports, how someone's brain can affect the way they play, understanding how your brain can affect the way you play. That's going to play a huge role in this game. Um, Two very talented teams here, extremely talented teams. The talent, you can see that I have all of the arrows going to Ole Miss. I think that Ole Miss just has the better team. Um, I think that LSU, with the patchwork that they've done on both sides of the ball, I do think it's going to take them another year. I think they're going to have a good season, but I think it's going to take them one more year to kind of let all those pieces settle in, let everything start to mesh well. And coming into year two with a lot of these same guys, I think they're going to be able to put together a real title contending roster. But as of right now, I mean, these guys at Ole Miss, they've built something. Lane built this, and Lane is the one that has to deal with it now. Trinidad Chambliss, in my opinion, is light years above Sam Levitt. I realized in my mock draft video that I did not have Trinidad Chambliss being mocked after I was like getting ready to post it, and I went back and looked, and PFF doesn't even have Trinidad Chambliss in their top 100 on the big board. So I think that's why he slipped the mind because he just wasn't an option. Um, I think Trinidad Chambliss is a top five quarterback in college football this year, maybe number four, behind obviously Sayin, Arch, and Dante Moore. I think that's where I would have Trinidad Chambliss is at number four. I mean, what he done in the playoffs, he reminds me a lot of like watching him in the playoffs reminded me a lot of like Jalen Hurts in the playoffs. He could do it with his legs. He can create. And when the lights were bright, like he just shines and he plays super well. Took down Georgia in that big playoff game. I think that Trinidad Chambliss has the advantage over Sam Levitt. Obviously, in on the offense, you have a guy like Kawan Lacey, just you know, running back that is another one of those guys projected to be a high draft pick in this upcoming season. I think that he gives you the advantage over this LSU offense. I think that the weapons that Ole Miss has are better than the weapons for LSU, but I do think that LSU is going to have a slight advantage on the offensive line. Um, so maybe I should have made those yellow, but I think that Ole Miss has the weapons advantage, especially at quarterback and running back. Your defense, obviously you lose the edge rusher to LSU. You have Lamar Brown over on LSU. I just think that this Ole Miss unit, like whenever they were needed in the playoffs, we did see a couple of slips where it seemed like, you know, man, they just had these couple of moments where they looked kind of, I guess not unexperienced, but almost like the opposite of Trinidad, where like they were just kind of caught by surprise that like, oh, we're here, we're doing this, we're playing in the playoffs, and we have to like really make this work. Um, but whenever they weren't like outside of those couple of moments, this was a really elite unit, very good unit. Um, Wish that this team had made it into the national championship over Miami. We could talk about those last couple plays for hours, and I'll always say that they should have gotten another play. Um, that is Ole Miss, by the way. But anyways, the key for this game, it all comes down to Lane Kiffin and this stadium. Can Lane come back? Can he handle probably the verbal and maybe even physical abuse that he's going to go through standing on the sidelines? I'm sure he's going to have stuff thrown at him. He's probably going to have people behind him screaming at him. Um, but for Ole Miss, I think the answer is really simple. Like, Lane leaving them last year might have made them a better team going into the playoffs. They felt like they were overlooked. They felt like they had been done wrong, and that was their fuel. If they bring that fuel into this game, I think that Ole Miss has all of the weapons and all the talent capability to be able to beat this LSU team, especially if you get that environment. Like LSU or Ole Miss has to really lean into this game as far as like the campus and the students. Like make this a thing. Like Lane Kiffin's coming home, and we need to beat his tail. And if you can get the whole team to buy into that, I think that you've got a game on your hands, and I think that Ole Miss will make it out of it. It's going to be a very good game as well. Um, John Mateer, back healthy, fully healthy. He's been making a splash at SEC Media Days this last week, talking a lot about the difference between last year and this year. Said he just didn't really feel like himself after he came back, and he's worked on that this year or this offseason, getting ready for this upcoming year. I think that John Mateer is clearly the better quarterback over Gunnar Stockton. I think that Gunnar Stockton is solid. He's the same archetype of quarterback that Georgia's always had, like the Stetson Bennett kind of like he just is passable and an above average quarterback. John Mateer is a dual threat. Like he's an athlete. He's very good at what he does. He can make something out of nothing, and he's just really good at keeping the defense on their toes. Now, if there's any defense that can handle it, it's the Georgia defense. But will all these things work out? We'll see when the game comes around. The Oklahoma offense, I think, is going to have an advantage over the Georgia offense. Georgia, and they do this every year, and it's so hard for me to wrap my head around Georgia. They always have this rotation of wide receivers that is just like none of them are really elite, but they're all like really good, like just not that elite. They've had obviously, a couple of guys in the past, but it more often than not they have like just a good core as a whole. And they'll have like one guy that stands out a little bit. They had Zachariah Branch this last year. Um, but generally it's just like that whole core. I can't remember the stat I heard the other day. It's been like 8 years, 9 years since Georgia's had an 1,000-yard receiver. Um, they just spread that ball out so much. I think that Oklahoma has the advantage as far as like the talent goes on the offensive side of the ball. Georgia's defense is just always one of the best units in college football. That brings me to my key for Oklahoma, which is can you win in the trenches? Um, Georgia's run game and their defensive line is just going to be hot all night. Obviously, Georgia has Nate Frazier. We got to see him get loose a lot last year. Very good running back, very talented. Um, I put specifically trenches for Oklahoma because I think that they have to win that on both sides of the ball. David Stone, defensive lineman for Oklahoma, he's got to be able to get back there and wreak some havoc. If he can get Gunnar Stockton off his mark a little bit, I think that this Oklahoma defense is going to need, like that Oklahoma secondary needs some extra help from this defensive line. Um, but if Georgia can establish the run game and negate David Stone, then this is going to be a very rough game for Oklahoma. I do think Georgia has the edge here. I think that Georgia just always somehow pulls it out. I think this will be a very close game, but I do think that Georgia will end up winning this game off of just like that physicality, um, just smash mouth football in the trenches. I just don't know how Oklahoma's going to hold up against that. And if they get hit in the mouth too many times with that run game, then it might be difficult for them to get back in it if they get too far behind. This is the last one we're going to go over today, and then the rest of the season will be in part two of this video. This is Miami and Clemson. like I said, I don't think that Clemson's going to have a very good year. So why is Miami versus Clemson the matchup of the week? It's mainly because of Miami and because of this conference. The ACC, I am a Florida State fan, and I will admit the ACC is a very weak conference. But with the new guarantee that the conference champion will make it into the playoffs, if Clemson is to somehow win this game, then it makes it very interesting as far as how many slots will the ACC get in the playoffs. Um, Obviously, Miami has become like the darling sweetheart of ESPN. These last couple years, they've built a really good program over there, especially you could say these last two. But Miami always loses at least one road conference game that they should not lose. Last year being Louisville on a, and that was like it really like the whole setup of that game. That was for sure in my eyes that was a trap game. Um, Miami going to Louisville on a Friday night, like not even a Saturday game on a Friday night. They end up losing in a close game. That was a trap game for Miami, and it just happens to them every year. And so when we get down to it, if this Clemson team can somehow punch Miami early, get ahead, get this offense down, um, maybe the stop them on the defensive side of the ball. You just have to, I think, take the lead early and hold on. And if Clemson can do that, and if Clemson wins this game, then Clemson could still make the playoffs. There's not really many teams in the ACC that are challenging for a spot in the conference championship game. I mean, it's Miami, SMU, Clemson, and like maybe somebody that surprises. I don't see FSU winning more than 6 games this year. I would love to say that FSU could win the conference, but I don't think it's happening. But if Clemson can somehow get a win over Miami and bump Miami into second or third place in the conference, then Clemson has a real shot at getting into the playoffs. Now, if somehow Miami drops 2 games, and maybe it's Clemson SMU in the ACC Conference Championship game, then Clemson has a shot to get in and Miami has a shot to get in. I don't know. I just think that this game, this you could be looking at the two best teams in the ACC fighting for placement in the ACC. Obviously, I believe that Miami has the upper hand in every single one of these categories. Darian Mensah comes in 4,000-yard passer last year. You have Malachi Tony and Mark Fletcher. You always have an elite offensive line under, gosh, I can't even remember his name, Cristobal. You always have an elite offensive line under Mario Cristobal. And for for your defensive line, you always have an elite defensive line as well. Um, Miami just has to play a safe game. Win the line of scrimmage, play your game. Do not play down to your opponent, which they have obviously an issue with doing because they keep dropping these just weird, random road games. Um, win the line of scrimmage, play clean, don't mess up, be the team that like obviously everyone expects you to be and knows that you are. Clemson, like I said, the key for them just you have to punch early. That's exactly how LSU got them. They got them early. I can't remember exactly what it was. I think it was a trick play on a fake field goal. They strike first, and that like obviously it throws Miami off, knocks them off their balance, and LSU is able to just like hold on to the end of the game. LSU, I believe, only scored 2 touchdowns, and both of them were on trick plays. So like that's completely doable for Clemson. Now, if you let Malachi Tony get the ball too many times, then you're just not going to be able to win this game. And you also have to worry about Mark Fletcher. This would be a hard game for Clemson to win, but if they do, like I said, it could make this conference really interesting. I think Miami should win this game by a landslide. Um, but yeah, so that is going to be this is my top matchup so far. Um, Very excited to just for college football season in general. I feel like I've been without it for too long. Um, I've been watching film on some guys. I talk a lot of NFL with some of my buddies. So I've been watching film on some guys for our dynasty leagues and stuff like that. just doing anything I can to get some football in my system. I hope you enjoyed. I would love to hear your favorite matchups for this upcoming season. Maybe your favorite matchup for your home team. Um, would love to know who you're most excited to watch play this year. And if you enjoyed, let me know. We can maybe preview a couple more teams. I had so many games. Like, there's a couple of these weeks where it's just like three different matchups that I wanted to put in. And obviously trying to keep it as short and sweet as possible, so that way both of these episodes can get enough um, just like talk and conversation on what I think could happen in these games. But like I said, super excited. Leave a comment, like, and subscribe if you're on YouTube. Follow if you're on Spotify. I really appreciate anybody that listens and watches, and I will see you guys later.